Hey guys, so we've been talking to a lot of neurodivergent people recently, and Jesus Christ, do you want to know what we've all got in common? We literally have the same school reports. If you remove the name, I would think that someone had actually jacked my school report from me and took it home for some weird perverted kick. Because honestly, you couldn't make this shit up. So we're going to talk about something painful and absolutely rage-inducing all at the same time. And yes, as I said, it's about school reports. Because when you're late diagnosed and you look back at your school reports, you realise they were basically screaming, this child is bloody special, neurodivergent special. And somehow everyone, including your parents, just went, yeah, she needs to apply herself. Excuse you? Apply herself to what? Surviving a school system? Like a sensory assault course, mate. Honestly, reading my old school reports now feels like reading an ADHD and autism assessment written by people who had absolutely no idea they were writing an ADHD and autism assessment. There were so many buzzwords and classic lines like, she was very bright, and no, maybe there wasn't, she was very bright. I never remember anything nice being written like that. Talks too much, definitely. Thinks she's the class clown, definitely. Needs to stop distracting others, 100%. Doesn't work to her full potential like her peers. A lot of comparison to peers. Can do well when she's interested, which is rare. I remember my mum was so upset by my report once, and I was so devastated by it. And it was a yearly thing, but this one was extra spiteful. She made the teacher rewrite it. The teacher was called Mrs. Foster. She was my year 5 teacher in Ifield Middle School. She made Miss Foster rewrite the report, and Miss Foster took me into the school class after school, and she said, I'm going to read this report with you that your mum made me rewrite because she disagreed with it, but actually I think that I was completely correct. And I remember the woman was so spiteful. Let's locate her. The woman was so spiteful to me. If that had been my child, I would set about her right now. She was so horrible. She obviously abused her power so badly. And it wasn't, I was used to abuse as a kid. So this was next level abuse from a teacher. Miss Foster, if you're out there, I'll be coming shortly for you. I hope you now have neurodivergent children and you advocate for them, because you were nasty to me in my report, and you were nasty to me when you rewrote it. Anyway, I digress. So what we're saying is, my brain always responded better when there was dopamine, novelty, emotional connection, or actual stimulation. That's fucking groundbreaking, Miss fucking Foster, because that's what you wrote in my report. You wrote, when she's interested, when she can be bothered. Yes, when there was dopamine for me. When you were talking about something I was freaking interested in, like Narnia, then my eyes lit up like a fucking kid at a fucking candy store, because it was my special shit in interest. But yes, I switched off when you were talking about every other single thing, because I'm neuro-bloody-divergent, Miss Foster. The contradictions are bloody funny. One teacher would write, she's quiet and sensitive. Probably Mrs. Butcher, because she was bloody lovely. And another would write, she talks excessively and struggles to sit still. One would write, she's withdrawn. And the other would write, something equally bipolar. Like, honestly, it's like I was both a Victorian ghost child and a nightclub host all at once. Pick a fucking lane, teachers. Pick a lane. Get together. Talk about shit. Obviously, if one of you thinks that I'm the life and soul of the party and one of you thinks I'm being abused at home, maybe you should have got together in the staff room. Instead of speaking about the fit teacher that taught maths, maybe you should have spoke about me. Maybe then we would have realised that there were issues. But honestly, underneath the humour that I make, because I can only make humour from trauma, there's something really bloody sad about it. Because when you're a child, you don't read those reports and think, oh, it's alright, Ellie, maybe your brain just works differently. You just internalise all of the shit and you think, I'm lazy, I'm difficult, I'm too much. And you get heartbroken because you compare it to your sister's reports, your friends' reports. Hell, in Miss Foster's reports, I was even being compared to my peers and saying that I wasn't good enough. And that shame follows you through life. Honestly, I've gone through my life thinking, I'm not good enough, I need to people please. I've got into bad relationships through people pleasing, bad friendships, been abused and manipulated, and I blame Miss Foster. I don't, but it's series of them sort of things happening and me internalising all of that. No, Ellie, you're not good enough. That's got me into so many people pleasing predicaments and allowed me to just think I'm crap, so therefore people should abuse me. Especially for girls, because so many of us don't fit into this stereotype. There was diagnosed kids when I was at school, but they were always boys. And they were the boys that were throwing the chairs or literally climbing the walls like freaking Spider-Man. Shout out to Derek Drew. Some of us were masking. Some of us were people-pleasing, overthinking, panicking. Some of us had other issues at home going on. And we would cry in public and, in private and not in public. That's a whole masking genre. We weren't fine, we weren't coping, and there was a bloody big difference. Some of us, not me, were labelled bright, emotional, dramatic, disorganised, chatty, sensitive, messy, forgetful, inconsistent. All of those were bad connotations. All of them come with bad connotations. And when we look back as adults, that's why we feel so much relief at being diagnosed and thinking, oh, okay, there was a reason, but also so much grief because that little child in you who's been made to feel like shit, that's not fucking fair. How did nobody join them dots before? And I know why. It was the 80s and Miss Foster specifically failed me badly. She done me dirty. How did nobody look at that child who was constantly overwhelmed, constantly distracted, constantly emotionally flooded, and struggling, and think maybe she needs support? Why did you think it was okay to shame Ellie? Constantly shame Ellie, one report after the other, one teacher after the other. That's the bit that gets me, because younger me didn't need another comment saying that she wasn't good enough. She needed someone to ask her, why is this so hard for you? Because honestly, I was trying to the nth degree. I used to be like, God loves a trier, because I was the trier. I was the trier, but the only person that loved me was God for it. A lot of neurodivergent kids are trying harder than anyone could ever realise, because we're just trying to navigate a system that doesn't recognise invisible effort, because that's exactly what it is. It's invisible to everybody else, but magnificent to us. And honestly, some of our school reports were basically a neurodivergent crime scene. Honestly, it's ridiculous. So if you've ever looked back at your school report, or not even looked at them, but thought back to them because they stuck in your mind and you felt angry, sad, or personally attacked, you're not alone. Because I've spoke to so many people. I spoke to Man on Pause. I spoke to another guy this week, and they're all saying the same. We weren't lazy. We weren't difficult. We were bloody neurodivergent children trying to survive in a world that kept describing our symptoms as shitty behaviour. And honestly, some teachers basically write the diagnosis and gave us detention for it. I'd love to know, what was your most ADHD or ADHD or autistic thing written in your school report? Because I know some of you have got some absolute fucking classics. And I know some of you have met your own Miss Fosters in life. Yeah. Unfair, guys, unfair. But it's just the cross we have to carry, isn't it? I'm not moaning again. I feel validated nowadays. But I also feel sad for that little Ellie in there. That just was never enough for Miss Foster. Sorry, I'm bashing her now. There's obviously a lot of pent-up tension towards her. Down with Miss Foster. Sending you all loads of love. And Miss Foster too. I'm not mad at you. I'm just a little jealous of the reports that you gave for everyone else.